debate about the issue of the Sabbath in Christian circles. Is it on Saturday? Is it on Sunday? Was it changed? If so, how? Was it only for the Jews? Does it apply to New Testament Christians? I'm going to be answering these questions and many more in this video. 20 facts about the Sabbath that every Christian must know. Fact number 1. Observing the Sabbath is part of the 10 Commandments. It's the 4th commandment, and it reads, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it." Fact number 2. The Bible Sabbath is on Saturday. To be more specific, from Friday evening to Saturday evening. We know this because the 4th commandment says the 7th day is the Sabbath. And according to the Gospels, Jesus was raised on the 1st day of the week. For example, Mark chapter 16 verse 9 says, "Now when Jesus was risen early the 1st day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had cast 7 devils." Just about everyone recognizes the day that Jesus was raised on as Sunday. That's where we get Easter Sunday from. It's the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now that we got what day the Bible Sabbath is on out of the way, let me show you why it's supposed to be observed from Friday to Saturday sunset. Leviticus chapter 23 verse 32 states, "From even unto even shall ye celebrate your Sabbath." From even to even in the King James Bible means from evening to evening, or, in other words, from sunset to sunset. Why did the Jews celebrate their Sabbaths this way? And why do some Christians celebrate the Sabbath this way today? The reason being is because, biblically, a sunset marks a new day. This goes all the way back to the creation account in Genesis chapter 1. With each day God created, it states, "And the evening and the morning were the first day, the second day, and so on." The division of days from midnight to midnight is actually a Roman invention which came into use later and which practically the entire world has now adopted. Further evidence that the Sabbath is on Saturday includes the Jews. They have been keeping the same Sabbath for thousands of years ever since Old Testament times, and the day they keep as the Sabbath is Saturday. Fact number 3. The Sabbath was not and is not only for the Jews. The Bible never indicates that the Sabbath was only for the Jews. The first people to keep the Sabbath were Adam and Eve, and they were not Jewish. That's because the institution of the Sabbath goes as far back as creation. Genesis chapter 2 verses 1 through 3 reads, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, most of them. And on the 7th day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the 7th day from the work which he had made. And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made." Also, the 4th commandment tells us the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. It belongs to God, not the Jews. It's his Sabbath. Also, in the 4th commandment, not only were the Jews to rest on the Sabbath, so were the strangers that lived within their gates. Stranger is another word for foreigner or non-Jew. Isaiah chapter 56 verses 6 through 7 provides more undeniable evidence that the Sabbath was not only for the Jews, stating, "Also the sons of the stranger that joined themselves to the Lord to serve him and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants, every one that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and taketh hold of my covenant, even them will I bring to my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my house of prayer." Their burnt offering showed that God's mission for the Jews in the Old Testament included proclaiming the gospel to the Gentiles, so that they would and keep. Remember, it's almost as if God knew we were going to forget about it. That's significant, considering we live in a day and age when many churches and pastors are telling their congregations to forget about keeping the seventh-day Sabbath. That's part of the old covenant, they say, or that was only for the Jews, or it's been changed to Sunday. The Sabbath can't be changed. Some argue that the Sabbath has been changed from Saturday to Sunday because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But the Bible makes it clear that the Ten Commandments, which the Sabbath is a part of, are unchangeable. For example, God said in Psalm chapter 89 verse 34, "My covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that is gone out of my lips." What words came out of God's lips? Before listing the Ten Commandments, Exodus chapter 20, not to mention Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5 verses 17 through 19, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be." One jot or one tittle is the equivalent to the dotting of an I or the crossing of a T. Therefore, Jesus made it clear that it was not his purpose to change God's law to the slightest degree. Instead, it was his purpose to fulfill God's law. What to fulfill? It means to do and show us how to do it. And that brings me to fact number 6. He worshipped God on that day. Another reason the Sabbath, God hath blessed, and I cannot reverse it. So no matter what anyone says, the seventh day of the week still remains blessed as it on another day. Not to mention cross. Jesus died on the cross for us because we are guilty of breaking God's law. Breaking his law, rather than send his son to die in order to pay that penalty for us. Jesus' death on the cross this Sabbath. Making something holy includes blessing it with the presence of God. That is demonstrated in Exodus bush. It says, "And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside. God called unto him ground." God was present in the burning bush, therefore it became holy ground. And God told Moses to take off his shoes. The Sabbath is holy. That means God has blessed it in a special way with his presence, and we could enter into that presence. Keeping the Sabbath strengthens our relationship with God. I know us being sanctified means we become more like God in character. This is the Lord's will for people, that the Sabbath helps us to be holy. Character is vehemently opposed to the Sabbath, and that is apparent with all of the accusations. New Testament Christians, even Jesus rested on the Sabbath. Paul preached to the Jews on the Sabbath, "If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day." God called the Sabbath. What's more, the book of Hebrews tells us there remains a 7th day for a rest. Pray that your flight be not in the winter, because the Sabbath was still important. It's a holy life unto them that do sign that we worship the Creator. That from one, the devil wants us to break the Sabbath along with God's other 9 commandments, because he knows that disobedience to God is sin. And Romans chapter 6 verse 23 says, it puts it this way: not keeping the Sabbath with the rest of the 10 commandments. Not many of us, and still this change among others is the law